Let me walk you through the major stages involved in the grieving process or journey. I am greatly indebted to my friend and colleague, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, for her fine work in helping clarify the stages natural, normal grief process. Stage 1 is denial. This isn't happening to me. If I just wait a while, everything will be okay, and we will be back together again. This is often a state of emotional shock, numbness and denial of feelings. Naturally, one may enter into an almost robotic phase during this time, acting as though nothing is happening, repressing anger and a few other emotions, as well as feeling down no matter what people say or what happens around you. There is the hope that your partner will not leave, and you will wake up and find out that it's all been a nasty dream. You don't want to talk to people, be they friends or neighbours, about the ending of the relationship. Indeed, you don't really want to tell yourself at this stage that it could be real. Stage 2 is the emergence of powerful feelings as one gradually begins to accept the end of the relationship, and such powerful feelings of anger start to emerge, and often at the most unexpected times. Anger that is turned inwards can contribute to a form of what we term reactive depression. As we work on this stage, expressing the anger now feels easier, but there is also concern that the partner will not return to the relationship at any cost because of such anger, which can result in times of feeling both guilt and ambivalence. Now, the frustrations in the relationship, which built up over some time, also surface in the form of intense feelings of anger. Friends will have told you how they wondered how you tolerated your former partner for so long. In turn, it may be the case that you go to great lengths to convince others how terrible that former partner was, which often results in the catch-22 situation where you lose both ways. If you talk about how good the person is, how do you stay angry? But if you say how terrible that person is, then the question becomes, why did you choose such a terrible person to love in the first place? You have now started to work through the grief process when you admit and express such anger. Stage 3. You are beginning to face the fact that the relationship is ending, yet for a whole host of reasons, both emotional and practical, with reluctance. One may start bargaining. I'll do anything, just take me back. This stage is dangerous for the ending process because many people do get back together, but for all the wrong reasons. To avoid loneliness and unhappiness in considering life without their partner. They are not choosing to live successfully with their former partner, but instead choosing the lesser of two evils. Stage 4 of grief is letting go of the relationship, and is essentially the darkness before the dawn. Very intense sadness is typical of this stage, but differs in expression from the earlier stage of intense sadness about the loss of the relationship, and extends to your life in general. Essentially, many people say, "Is this all there is to life?" There is much internal dialogue about the meaning of life. Why am I here on earth? What's the purpose of my life? This is a stage of personal growth to build a stronger identity, to find a deeper purpose for living, and to make life more meaningful. A number of people are left feeling that they can't go on living during this stage with such feelings, such as, I've tried so long and worked so hard, and here I am, down in the pits, and I don't want to let go. Because this stage sometimes comes so long after the actual separation, people are naturally surprised to feel so down and intensely sad again. It is discouraging to have worked so hard and feel so little progress. However, I have found that once people are aware of this stage, and that it is a stage that they can progress through, this makes it easier. They are essentially comforted to realize that it's a normal feeling, and they are not getting anything wrong at all. So be encouraged to know that with the right support at this stage, this grief will not last forever, and that it's very different from the earlier stage of denial grief. Stage 5 is where the stage of acceptance of the loss of the relationship begins. You have begun to feel free from the emotional pain of grief, and to no longer feel the need to invest emotionally in the past. Now one can begin to move along the journey with personal freedom and independence. It is critically important to work through these 5 stages of grief before entering even another relationship, but we will discuss this in more detail in our next session. Now you feel and understand the grieving process and have permission to grieve as a healthy mental activity, you may feel freer to do some much-needed grieving, which may include some past loss besides that of the loss of the relationship currently here in your life. People I work with often find writing a letter, and certainly when my partner died, this is something didn't just find helpful at the time, but in the future, for it was something that helped me when I entered another transitionary phase in my life. In addition to our working together, I encourage you to use your close and insightful friends for support as you work through your grief. And do not talk to people who've never grieved, for they often have no understanding or respect for this powerful and all-important process. But this is something that we'll focus on in our next session in more detail. Here's a checklist for us to go through before we have our next session. 1. I give myself permission to grieve if and when I need to. 2. I'm not burying the grief and sadness anymore, but I'm trying to express it. 3. I now have physical and emotional energy from morning until night. 4. I've stopped feeling intense sadness most of the time. 5. I have no trouble concentrating. 6. I no longer feel like crying most of the time. 7. I've overcome the feeling that I'm in a dazed state all of the time. 8. My emotions and moods are back in my control. 9. I have no trouble going to sleep and sleeping all night. 10. I notice that my body weight has stabilized. 11. My appetite is good. 12. I no longer feel mechanical in my day-to-day living habits. 13. I've outgrown the feeling that I'm losing my mind. 14. I have stopped continually talking about my relationship and life crisis to people. 15. I have no thoughts of ending my life. 16. I no longer have a lump in my throat. 17. My stomach feels relaxed. 18. I am beginning to emotionally grow close to people again. 19. I understand the grief process. 20. I have identified which of the 5 stages of grief that I am currently working through. 21. I have identified what I need to grieve, be this a person, relationship, or a future. 22. I am comfortable talking about my feelings of grief with a close friend. 23. I have written a letter of goodbye to the loss I am experiencing now.